Hi, everyone. It's Kirsten here again from Be Well Physiotherapy with another movement practice, an integrated yoga therapy, physiotherapy movement practice. This week, we're going to be talking about our glutes, the main bum muscles. And in particular, we'll be talking about gluteus maximus. So it's the biggest of the three glute muscles. Um, and when this muscle is working well, when it is firing when it's supposed to and relaxing when it can, and just when it's functioning efficiently and when it's working in concert with the rest of your system, there's this sense or quality of standing taller. So, this practice today is all about helping you feel a little bit taller standing on your own two legs. So, for this practice, we will be using a few props. So, if you can gather these few things up, that would be really helpful. We're going to need a chair, both for sitting on and for using the backrest for. And if you've got yoga tune-up balls, or so mine are in the little mesh bag still, or a couple of tennis balls will work. Um, and if you don't have them, that's fine too. I'll show you a way that you can do what we need to do without any prop. But if you've got these yoga tune-up balls, and that would be great, and two of them would be great. And finally, a block. Doesn't really matter what size the block is. Okay, so we're going to get started with our practice to help us feeling a little bit taller, standing a little taller on our own legs with an exploration of accessing gluteus maximus muscles. So let's come up into standing. Our check-in pose will be just an easy Tadasana. So I'll have you just feel feel 3 points on the bottom of your foot, the base of your big toe, the base of your little toe, and the center of your heel. Feeling those 3 points. There's no need to press into anything. I'd like you simply, this is a check-in pose. So let's not artificially put ourselves into any one position. Instead, just let yourself stand and notice those 3 points on your feet. Where is there more pressure on your feet? And then feel what you feel through your whole body. What's up? And as you're standing in your Tadasana, checking in, I'd like to share a little story about in my years as a physiotherapist, I have spent lots of time working with people, and I've heard from countless people that in their work with either another physiotherapist or chiropractor or massage therapist or a body worker of some sort, that their glutes just don't fire. Glute max just doesn't fire. And I know as a therapist, I've worked with lots of people trying to get the glutes to fire. And I know that the gluteus maximus, its main actions are to extend your hip. So its main action is to bring your thigh bone back relative to your pelvis and relative to your torso. It also assists a little bit with a lateral rotation. So with turning the thigh bone out. The third place where it can come in handy, glutes, is when your torso is forward. So when you flexed forward at the hips, those glutes can help pull you back up tall over your legs again. So we've got these three functions, and in my attempts to help people activate their glutes, likely because they were experiencing some pain in their low back or in their knee or in their foot, in my attempts to get the glutes going, I would do all these exercises that would be in those movements, extending the thigh bone, standing up taller, maybe a little bit of lateral rotation of the leg bone. And I would get quite frustrated that glutes just weren't responding. And I probably ended up putting a little bit of frustration onto my clients as well, or this wonder of what's wrong with me? Why don't my glutes fire? And it wasn't until I broadened my view, broadened my understanding of glutes and how they connect to the rest of the body and how they connect to each individual person, that I was able to find some interesting ways to help wake up these glutes that had nothing to do, well, a little bit maybe, didn't have a whole lot to do with those 3 movements that I shared with you. So that's what we're in for today. We'll be doing some different movements, a little bit of massage, some yoga poses, and then we'll keep checking back in with our glutes and how they're feeling. So we've checked in Tadasana. The next kind of check-in pose that I'd like you to play with is with your chair pose. So if you can bring your hands to the front, right where your thigh bones meet your pelvis, and as you sit back into your chair pose, I'd like you just to think about letting your thigh bones are going to come up towards your pelvis, and your pelvis is going to kind of tip forward a little bit over the thigh bones and then come on back up. Nice. So if your hands are in the hip crease, as you take off into your chair pose, this hip crease gets deeper as you sit back, and then it opens up as you stand up. Something I'd like you to notice is that I'm not pressing, I'm not poking my tailbone back or flaring my ribs forward and then coming down. That brings a whole lot of work into the muscles of your low back, and we're wanting this to be a check-in for glutes. So without poking your tailbone back and arching your back, just keep your Tadasana spine and let your hips do the work. Whoop, hip crease gets deeper, and then up you come. Good. A couple more times, up and down. This is our check-in pose. So just feel what you feel as you work through your chair pose. Awesome. Okay, let's move into our first stimulus to see how our glutes may respond. So you can have a seat on your chair, and we're going to start way down at the ankle. So if you can feel on the outside of your ankle, you've got your ankle bone on the outside, your lateral malleolus here. If you can bring your fingers in behind the lateral malleolus and then pushing quite like, get in there, dig a little deep, whoop, sliding off, you'll find there's a bit of a valley that you can run your fingers up and down that stays just behind that ankle bone and in front of your Achilles tendon. And then work your way up that valley. Good. So your gluteus maximus, it comes from the back of your pelvis and your sacrum, and the fibers run kind of down diagonally and then attach into a band of fascia that runs all the way up the outside of your leg, called your iliotibial band, IT band. Lots of people have probably heard of that. And most of the fibers of your glutes blend into that IT band on the outside of your leg. And then those fibers from that fascial system has connections down the outside of your lower leg and the outside of your torso up into your neck as well. So we're going to see if paying a little attention to the outside of the lower leg may help wake up those glutes a little bit. So now that you've found that groove, I'd like you to cross your leg over your opposite knee. Then bringing your hand in behind so that you can kind of cup your fingers into that groove, staying behind the outside ankle bone, and then just working your way up. And I'm kind of moving my fingers front and back, just giving a little massage in there. Good. And then you're going to choose a spot along that course, and hold that pressure, and then just flex and point your toes, flex and point your ankle. Good. And then as you can kind of move your fingers up and down in that valley that we found, and just flex and straighten your ankle. Good. You'll feel tendons and muscles kind of sliding and gliding under your fingers. And you may find some kind of tender points. You don't have to, this isn't about feeling pain. This is about accessing gluteus maximus, and hopefully nurturing a sense of feeling taller on your own legs. Good. Let's do that on the other side. So across the other leg over, finding that groove behind the outside of your ankle, and then just working your fingers into that groove. I got some sore spots on this side. So I'm going to just back off a little bit on one of those sore spots, but still hold a gentle amount of pressure, and then start to flex and extend at the ankle again. And again, you can move that pressure of your fingers kind of up and down the outside of your leg that's crossed, all the way down to just behind that ankle bone. Nice. Okay. So let's come back up into standing. Move the chair out of the way. And we'll come back into Tadasana. So having paid a little bit of attention to the outside of our shins, really, how do you feel standing? Has there been any shift in the pressure points in the balls of your feet? Has anything else shifted up for you? And back to our chair pose. Again, letting the hips lead this movement. We come down into chair pose and then stand back up. Good. Come on down into chair pose and stand back up. Interesting. My knees always click and grind when I stand up out of chair pose. And after this time, my right knee is much quieter. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Anyways, that's what I notice. Doesn't mean that you should notice that. You feel what you feel. I just think that's really curious. I'd never noticed that before. Okay, the next movement we are going to play with is goddess pose. So you're going to step your feet a little bit wider than hip distance apart, and notice the level of your pelvis. Let your pelvis just feel supported on those legs. Then we're going to turn the thigh bones out. So what I'm not doing, I'm not just turning my foot out to the side. I'm kind of picking up my forefoot, spinning the whole thigh bone out, and then letting my foot set back down. Same thing on the other side. Okay, remember those glutes have an outward rotation, a lateral rotation component. So we'd like to use the muscles around our hips to do that movement. Wonderful. Then as you come down into goddess pose, hands can stay on the tops of your pelvis, and think about just letting your pelvis lower down, 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 down. Good. Noticing the 3 points in the balls of your feet again. Nice. Back down we go. Down, down, down. And then come on back up. So if you're feeling any pinching or pressure or discomfort in your knees or your ankle as you do this, just shorten things up. Just bring your feet in a little bit closer together, or don't spin your legs out so far. It's okay if your toes aren't pointing. This isn't like a plie in ballet. Just using however much rotation you've got, and then let the pelvis settle down, 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 down. Good. This time we'll hold. Let your hands gently rest behind your thighs. And then just really easy, can you just press the leg bones back into your hands ever so slightly? Good. So your hands aren't really going to be pushing really firmly forward on your legs. They're just there as like a little move into me here kind of a cue. We don't want you pressing really hard with your hands and creating all sorts of tension and gripping up through your chest and your rib cage. Good. Let the work stay in your legs. Notice the 3 points of your feet. Notice your breath. Really nice. And then come on back up. Stepping your feet back together again. Back to your Tadasana. How do you feel? How tall are you standing over your legs here? And chair pose. Coming down into that chair pose. Good. Hip crease gets deeper on the way down. And then up you stand. Really nice. One more time. Deeper hip crease as you come down into your chair pose. And then stand up. And noticing what's shifted, what's changed from the stimuli, the two other movements, or one massage and one movement that we've practiced so far. We're going to bring the chair back into play again for our next movement. We're going to do a seated twist. So I was talking about earlier how your glutes blend into this IT band that runs down the side of your leg. And we talked about having its fascial connections down into some of the muscles on the outside of your shin, and how it also has connections up the outside of your waist, of your torso. One of its main connections is into your obliques. And your obliques are the muscles that can create a twist through your torso. So we're going to play with a little twist, paying close attention that we're using our obliques to do this twist. So you can bring your hands into prayer pose if you like, or you can cross your arms, hands on opposite shoulder. Whatever works for you. You can also just have your hands on your rib cage. I like just having my hands in the middle here. I can feel my ribs kind of close to my elbows. Then we're just going to turn. Rib cage spins over top of your quiet, easy pelvis, and then turning the other way. Good. Now, what I'd like you to notice here, as you gently twist side to side, is there a point as you're twisting where your legs start to get involved? So you may have noticed, if you happen to be looking at the screen, as I twist this way, if I push any further, my knees, did you see my knees move a little bit off to the side? See if that happens for you, if there's any part of your legs that are trying to kind of come in and take over for your obliques. Now they're not, it's not wrong if they're doing that. It's not a bad thing if they're doing that. It's just the intention of this movement for this practice is to have the obliques working and not your legs. Good. Let's hold the twist off to one side. It's really easy. And then let your breath fill your abdomen, your rib cage. As you hold the twist. Center. And then off to the other side we go. Center. Wonderful. Let's go through our 2 check-in poses again. We're going to move the chair off to the side, back into your Tadasana. How are you feeling? And chair pose. Great. Next movement is a side bend. So just starting in your Tadasana, feeling the 3 points of your feet again. We're just going to elongating from your hip all the way up to your armpit, slowly coming over into your side bend. Good. So there's not what there is like a smooth, continuous arch up this one side of your body. What we don't want to see is one part kind of collapsing to create your side bend. We'd like the side you're bending towards. It's like you're rolling over a beach ball over here. And the side that you're bending away from has a nice congruent side bend. Good. Then you can play with the position of your arm, maybe coming up like you're a teapot. Maybe reaching your arm all the way up. What's important here with this side bend is that you're not feeling any pressure or pain into your low back or your SI joints. The tissue we're aiming for here is all the intercostal muscles. So just like your obliques that kind of do a bit of a crisscross pattern to create twisting through your torso, your intercostal muscles between each of your rib bones, they also kind of crisscross. So we'd like to make sure that there's an opening through, like an accordioning open of the rib cage. So if adding the arm in gives any added pinch or discomfort or has you feeling like you're hinging at one spot, then you just don't do that. That's okay. Let's head over to the other side. So again, imagining we've got our beach ball that we're kind of laying over. Long, kind of congruent line. And then play with the position of your arm. Maybe you're a teapot. Maybe your arm reaches all the way up. And then a few breaths, directing this stimulus, directing the breath into your rib cage. And coming back, standing. Wonderful. And then our chair pose again, checking in with the glutes. There we go. As your glutes start to work efficiently and effectively, there's a smoothness to the movement of in and out of chair pose, and there's which kind of frees up any congestion that may have been happening in your low back and into your knees as well. So that may be a quality that you notice. That may be a sign that your gluteus maximus, is working a little bit more. If you feel that smoothness or a little more freedom or like a floating quality of your ribs on your pelvis. Awesome. So just feel what you feel for that. And then we're heading into our final exploration here of kind of broadening our view in an attempt to see if we can help our glutes and help ourselves feel a little taller on our legs. So for this last movement, we're going to come into a bit of a forward bend with your hands on the back of a chair. So what I'd like you to pay attention to is where this forward bend is coming from. I'd like it to come from your pelvis rolling over the tops of your thigh bones. So there's no flexing through your spine to get your hands onto the chair. And there also, you don't need to kind of poke your tail back and then come forward with your chest really far forward. We don't need either of those extremes. All we need to do is flex at the hips. Hands come onto your chair. Good. Once you've arrived, I'd like you to bend one elbow and then straighten. Bend the other elbow and then straighten. Lovely. Feel the 3 points in the soles of your feet. Good. Straighten. So as you bend and straighten, notice how your shoulder blade on the back of your ribs has to kind of slide to allow your elbow to bend. So if there's any kind of stickiness of your shoulder blades on the back of your rib cage, then your elbow may not bend as far. That's okay. Don't push it. Just bending elbow as far as it can so that your shoulder blade slides and you're not twisting. So your whole rib cage isn't spinning as I just demonstrated there. Ribs are going to stay just neatly stacked over your pelvis. Good. Equal pressure into the 3 points on the balls of your feet. Good. And then as you come up, we stand up. Glutes help us bring our trunk up over top of our thigh bones. Wonderful. Our final check-in for this practice. Come on back to your Tadasana. Check in with how you're feeling. Good. And chair pose one last time. Moving, sitting back into chair and standing up a few times. Noticing the ease with which you can create this movement. And then hold and breathe. And come on back up. Great. I hope you enjoyed our exploration of glutes, taking a bit of a broader lens and paying some attention to the structures that are connected kind of fascially up above and below the chain, and seeing if that helped you stand any taller on your own legs. Have fun exploring. And again, I would love to hear how this practice went for you. See you next week.